afternoon and welcome to our Science Monday, Science with Stina and Harbor WildWatch. As we get folks tuning in for this live squid dissection, I have some of my favorite jokes to let you all in on. My first one is, why is a squid such a good scientist? They are well armed for any experiment. Knee slapper. Okay, last one. How do you make a squid laugh? 10 tickles. Ha ha ha. Oh, we are so hilarious here. Or maybe that's just me. I don't know. But welcome everybody. I'm very excited for this lesson today. This is really one of my favorites to bring into schools because it's one of those science projects that's both like gross and that makes it extra awesome. So with that, I want to give a shout out to Rachel out there who's running our tech. And if you're tuning in, if you could let us know where you're tuning in from and what grade the students you have with you who are also watching, we'd love to know that. So feel free to just type that into the comments and Rachel will give you a little shout out. So today the plan is to talk about why scientists do dissections, give you a little bit of an overview about how awesome squid are, and then dive into that dissection, conclude, and then you're welcome to join me after the dissection for a little lunchtime for sea creatures here, because this is one of their favorite things to eat here at the touch tanks at Harbor WildWatch. So to get started, why do we do dissections? Well, it's a way to learn things. So a dissection is taking something apart, and I don't just have to dissect squid, or maybe you've heard of like frog dissections when you get into middle school or high school. Some people even dissect like cow eyeballs, I think. I know in high school I got to dissect a cat, and it was a really interesting way to learn about all the different parts of something. Now, it doesn't even have to be a living thing. I could dissect a radio or my computer. Maybe don't just do that on your own, because if you mess something up that could get expensive, but by taking something apart we can better understand how it works and learn about all the different things that come together as a whole to make something go. So for us today we'll be looking at the different parts of the opalescent squid or market squid, which we got from the Northern Fish Company out in Tacoma, and I don't know if any of you have squid on hand. You're welcome to join along with me, but I'm gonna start off without slimy squid hands, and if you're tuning in and want some hands-on, I'm gonna teach you how to draw the external anatomy of a squid. So we'll get started with that part before we dive into the dissection. All right, so squids are a pretty cool creature. They're in the group cephalopod. They're in the phylum mollusk, so they're related to things like your garden snails or the sea slugs that we see out on the beach. Even clams are a relative of squid. And then you might think more closely related things like octopus and cuttlefish. Those are going to be two animals that are also in the class cephalopod, which means head foot. If I kind of break that word apart, ceph is head and pod is feet. So together we have head feet, which is kind of strange to imagine when we look at our own body organization. We have our head, body, feet. If you're a squid, your feet are on your head. So that's what we're gonna draw. So first off, we're gonna need our body. And the body of the squid, you can draw like a nice rounded big triangle. This is called the mantle, and on the mantle you're going to have two fins. We're going to learn what supports this muscular tube of flesh with all the organs inside as we do our dissection. On this body you're going to have your head, label our fins, and your head for a squid has nice two big eyes. Label that. And then off of that head, we're gonna draw those feet. For squid, they have 8 short arms and 2 long tentacles. So I'm gonna do my best to fit all of those in here. So there's 1 arm, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 arms. And then we're gonna just stick in 2 longer ones. Woo! These are the tentacles. There's 2 of those. Excellent. Now we're also going to see that on our squid, it's covered in these awesome polka dots called chromatophores. So I'm going to add some polka dots to my squid, and then I'm going to try and spell that in front of you all. Chromatophores. And these are essentially color-changing cells that have muscles that either retract or expand this colorful dot, and that helps with camouflage and communication. So squid and other cephalopods are pretty awesome because they can change colors by altering their skin. You'll also hear like things about the giant Pacific octopus. That's an animal that can actually change the texture of its skin, so it can go from a nice smooth looking animal to like, boom, I'm a rock. So really, really cool ability for these animals to change color. Squid can't change texture though. They're pretty smooth. So this is your basic squid. Nice little creature here. Fix that eyeball a little bit. If you want to add to your drawing as we go along in our dissection, maybe you can do a reverse side drawing, or even when we open it up, feel free to draw the insides. I'm gonna put the marker down and move on to the slimy parts, so I don't want to contaminate my gear here with squid juice. So I'm gonna shift down to our squid, and we're gonna basically take this external squid anatomy and see if we can find it on our market squid here today. So let me shift you down. Okay. Everyone see that? Finding the perfect spot. Okay, so here's our little market squid, or opalescent squid. You'll notice, again, that big, long, triangular body part. That is the mantle. On the mantle, there's those 2 little flaps. These are the fins. That's gonna, as the squid moves through the water, that's gonna help kind of stabilize this animal as it jet propels. We'll talk about what does that shortly. So fins, mantle, all those little polka dots, those chromatophores. Unfortunately, since our squid was recently defrosted, those don't really move anymore, but on a freshly dead squid, or even better, a live squid, you could see how the pigment on these little dots kind of either gets bigger or smaller. I like to relate it to an umbrella. So if I were to take an umbrella and you were to look at a closed umbrella straight on, you'd just see the tiny little point, and then if I were to open that umbrella, you'd see a much bigger circle, close it, tiny, maybe halfway open it, so just kind of expanding and contracting those little cells. Then of course, moving down our squid here, we have the head and the 2 eyes on either side. And then I'm gonna use this little blunt probe thing that I have here, and we're gonna tease apart, ooh, yep, there's a nice long tentacle, and there's the other long tentacle. So 1, 2 of those, and then let's count the arms. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 8 arms. And those arms are lined with little suction cups. That's something you could absolutely draw or add to your drawing if you'd like. These little suction cups all along those arms are going to be what helps that squid grab its food and hold it close to its mouth, which is in beneath all those tentacles here, or arms. I'm going to probably say that interchangeably because it's tricky to switch between. Now for these 2 long tentacles, typically the squid will have them kind of tucked up in with the rest of its arms, and when it finds something delicious it wants to eat, it will shoot these tentacles out to grab their prey item, which typically is going to be something like a small fish or maybe a shrimp, and then they'll bring it up to their mouth, which again, maybe I think we can do this here, is right on the inside. Now before we get to the digestive system, I'm actually going to flip our squid over because I want to show you its siphon. Again, there's those nice fins. And then if I move down the mantle to the back of the head, I notice there's this little tab of flesh. And if I kind of manipulate it a little bit, I can notice that it's actually a hollow tube. I can just kind of slide my blunt probe right through there. And I know there's 2 muscles attached to this tube. What will happen is this squid will fill its mantle with water and then contract these muscles, shooting the water out of this hole to jet propel it forward. That's why when you see a squid swimming, it kind of seems like it's going backwards because it's going to go mantle first in whatever direction. Sometimes they can use their arms to kind of crawl along the bottom, but for that really quick escape from maybe a hungry predator, because let me tell you, there are all sorts of animals in the Puget Sound food web that love to eat squid. So they're going to need to get away and get away quick if they're not going to become somebody's lunch. So that's where that siphon back here comes into play to shoot a tiny jet of water out and move them forward. So, pretty awesome animal. I will say something I really appreciate about dissections is that by taking this really close look, I'm really getting to know these adaptations that this creature has, or what are the different skills that it has to survive in its environment. Squid definitely have some cool ones. So, to get the energy to be a squid, they have to eat. So I mentioned the tentacles can grab the food, bring it close to the mouth. Little suction cups here can really hold on to something if it's slippery and slimy. And then in its mouth, let's see if I can, how close can I bring this without getting squid on my phone? All right, so we have the mouth, and it's surrounded in this ball of muscle called the buccal bulge. And what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna give it a little bit of a squeeze because I wanna show you the beak that's inside of that mouth. So squid have a hard beak that they use to bite their food. Often squid have venom, so typically if we're out at the beach, we recommend that you don't handle squid or octopus because if they bite you, ooh, you're gonna be having a sad rest of your day. But since the squid is not in biting condition, I'm gonna actually pull this buccal bulge out. As I do that, I notice it's attached, and that makes sense because when you eat something, you swallow it through your esophagus down to your stomach. So we're actually pulling, I'm gonna just gently pull the esophagus free here. I wonder, I kinda need something with good contrast, but we'll just pull that out. Little did we know, we just pulled that through the squid's brain. That's kind of gross, but again, gross but awesome, right? Now, I already have one of the little beak halves. This is very similar to, say, like a parrot's beak. There's 2 hard parts that crush together for the food, so I just kind of squeeze those out of that buccal bulge. Again, the muscle that operates this beak. And I have the 2 parts of the beak just resting on the tip of my finger. I don't know if my phone's focusing very well for you. All right, so there's our squid beak. Pretty cool. Set those off to the side. Now, because we're using food grade squid, there's no dye added to this animal before it was flash frozen. And so that the rest of the digestive system, as well as much of the respiratory system, are kind of tricky to tease apart on at least this specimen. But I have this handy dandy sheet that I'll bring out a couple of times, and this shows the oxygenated blood, like basically the arteries and veins of a market squid that's been prepared for a dissection. But we'll get to that when we get to the internal anatomy. So for now, ooh, this might be a good peek. A little bit of a bigger picture of the mouth of our squid here. So pretty awesome. And then over here, here's that buccal bulge with the beak, which is, you know, the hard, sharp jaws. Shredding that tasty food. Okay, so before we get inside our squid, another thing I want to point out are the squid's eyes. And for this market squid, we have at least something in common with them. We have a cornea over our eyes. For this group of squid, they also have corneas, so that layer across their eye. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at the lens, and this is kind of an interesting thing that's much different than our lens. Humans have kind of, it looks basically like a contact, so as light passes through your eye, you can go look in the mirror and watch your pupil changes as you look towards a brighter light or away. They're gonna get bigger or smaller depending on the amount of light that's passing through, and then that light gets filtered, or at least passes through a lens, which helps focus the light. Now, this squid here is nocturnal. So they're most active, oh, sorry about that. They're most active at night. And so the lens that they have is actually a round ball. And something about that helps the squid see really well in low light conditions. And so I want to show that to you. So to do that, I'm just gonna cut across the eye here. And then I'm gonna just gently kind of massage out a hard little circle. It's kind of got some juices on it. I'm gonna just rest that on my thumbnail. Maybe that's gross, but again, kind of awesome. All right, so this hard little ball here is indeed the lens of that squid's eye. On the other side, we can notice these definitely look better when they're when they're more fresh. This squid has been frozen a couple times, but they have kind of a rectangular pupil, and so yeah, we can kind of look at that external eye anatomy as well, but really kind of cool to compare a squid eye and that round lens with a human eye. Obviously, not dissecting my own eye today to have a hands-on experience with that. You're welcome. Okay, so let's move on to our squid's internal anatomy. I'm gonna flip it over so it's on its kind of front side again. I do want to point out something that I just noticed though. I noticed this back side is a lot lighter than the front side. See how much darker that is? So we have dark and light, and this is something that a lot of marine organisms have. It's a type of camouflage called counter shading. So not all creatures have the chromatophores like a squid to change color, but in general, this dark on top and light on the bottom is a really good way for creatures to stay blended in a water environment. I wonder, maybe in the comments you can add other marine animals you know of that have the same type of dark top, light belly. I can think of like a shark, and this is good not just for animals like a fish that also has a dark top, light belly, where they're trying to hide from the predators, or even the squid here. The dark of their top is gonna blend in with the dark of the sea floor as a predator is looking down to try and find this delicious, tasty treat. And then if the predator's below, they're gonna look up and see the light of the belly blending in with the light of the sky. Again, harder to see. Also an awesome adaptation for predators, because if I'm the squid and I'm looking up, I might not see the white belly of the predator coming down to get me until it's too late. So counter shading is a very cool adaptation that we see all over in the marine systems. Okay, so before I cut in, ooh, I see someone said turtles. Absolutely a great example of counter shading. Love it. So going in, before I go in actually, I want you to make a prediction, because One really good way to tell if a squid is male or female is to cut them open. So I want you to take a guess if you think this squid is a boy or a girl. We will know shortly. I'm gonna make an incision from the base of the mantle all the way to the top so we can take a look at some internal features here. I'm being very careful to only cut through the mantle and not jab down into the internal organs of our squid. I'm just gonna flip it open. I'm gonna use this blunt probe to tease apart some connective tissue so that we can get that to lay flat. Okay, so now we can look inside our squid. We have a couple more clues that might help you figure out whether this squid is male or female. But before we get to that, I'm gonna start with how a squid breathes. So you have some time to guess whether the squid is male or female. Well, I talk about the gills. So the gills on a squid, because they are not mammals, they don't have lungs, they have gills to filter oxygen out of the water. Nice cold water holds more oxygen, so it's no wonder that we find these creatures thriving in the Puget Sound. But I see our two gill branches on either side. Kind of look like another pair of arms or tentacles on our squid. And what's cool about these, again, because I'm using a food grade squid item that hasn't been dyed with chemicals that react to oxygenated parts or unoxygenated parts, like here. You can see the red on this example are those gills. Same on this one. Our gills are not red. But I can imagine that at the end of each gill, and then somewhere in between, there are 3 hearts. So I know Mother's Day just happened, but if you're like, oh, wait, thanks for the reminder, Stina, I need to go make a great card, using the squid as an example with its 3 hearts, you could come up with some really clever ways to rope that into something sweet for your mom. So 2 hearts and then a 3rd heart to pump that oxygenated blood throughout the rest of the squid's body here. So that's our respiratory system. And so I see some good oh yeah, do octopus have gills too? Absolutely. They're gonna be internal, also like the squid. I wonder if they're like a frilly branch like this. That could be an interesting dissection to do, but I don't know, Rachel. We'll have to figure out where to source some octopus. All right, so if you guessed that this squid is a male, you are absolutely right. I notice the big white blob here are its testes, and squid have a special gland that's gonna package that sperm into something called a spermatophore, and they hand that off to the female, which she can use to fertilize her eggs, and then lay these funny things. So while you're out on the beach, you might notice a pile of sausages. They are not sausages at all. They are indeed the cases of squid eggs. And if you look really closely, you'll notice that each of these long finger-like grape blobs is, there's about 100 little circles in there, each one an individual baby squid. Now, what's even cooler about finding these masses of squid eggs is that each one of these comes from an individual female. So I'm thinking one female lays one in one spot and all the other ladies are like, oh yeah, that's a great spot. I'll lay my eggs there too. They kind of have safety in numbers, and these packs, which the female creates, I have an example of her here. So she has the eggs, and they get processed through the nidamental glands, which make that protective case that she lays, and then that, whatever the exterior of the case here, really helps protect these little babies inside. They deter predators, and as they get kind of more brown over the spring, that's a good clue that you can look inside and actually see that the little baby squid have developed quite a bit. Like, you will actually see the individual little squid with its mantle and its eyes and its tiny little arms. I think it was Rachel that out on a beach walk had some of these, and they put them in a cup to look at them more closely, and they started hatching. So for the rest of that lesson, I think they just sat there naming baby squid, which, you know, that's some learning and having fun if ever I heard it. So if you see these out on the beach, they're not trash, they're awesome. Cool squid eggs here. So we have our male squid. Now looking here, I also notice again that siphon. So you can see these two muscles that are gonna retract and blow the water out so that squid can jet propel itself through the water. And then you might also be noticing there's kind of this dark blob here. This is the squid's ink sac, and this one looks pretty full. I've definitely noticed doing squid dissection with kiddos that sometimes we get squid and they have pretty puny ink sacs. I'm imagining that between getting caught and flash frozen, they don't have a ton of time to regenerate that ink. But this one, I think we're in luck for some good ink in a little bit later. Now, looking at this mantle, this is the nice flexible meat that our creatures in our touch tank love to eat. But before I feed our animals the squid, I like to remove the guts and remove another hard part that's found in the squid, its pen. So I'm just gonna kind of flip the head off to the side, and I'm gonna loosen up a remnant shell. So I mentioned that squid, they're in that group cephalopod, which is in the bigger group mollusk, which is part of the animal kingdom. And those mollusks are known for having a hard shell, and this is at least part of it. Looks like I broke off the other chunk. So as this squid is developing, unlike some mollusks that lose their shell entirely, the squid, like I'm thinking slugs, they develop without a shell. Our squid's shell becomes internal, and this pen is that evidence of that. So normally it's all one piece. I somehow have a damaged one, but I think it's always kind of interesting to, I'm gonna actually cut the ink sac open and then use the pen to write you a secret message, except I'm writing it like sideways. This is a little metal, sorry. Anybody guess what I'm writing? I know squid ink is definitely used in a lot of culinary things, so pastas often will have squid ink, but for the squid itself, this is absolutely its secret defense system. Learn to have fun, woohoo! They will, if they're threatened by a hungry predator, they can use some distraction techniques by squirting out a cloud of ink through that siphon here, and the predator can get distracted and the squid can swim away to safety. So, and again, a really cool adaptation that squid has to survive and thrive and hopefully pass on its genes to the next squid generation. So while I'm getting this squid prepared for our creature's lunch, I would love to see, yeah, that hopefully says learn, what you all learned from doing this dissection in the comments. Again, dissections are a great way to learn more about various things, in this case a squid, which not only donated its body to science today, but is about to become lunch for our sea creatures. So I'm just gonna get this, we're just gonna use some scissors to prepare some nice chunks. We'll probably feed the crabs and hermit crabs with you all on. I'm also gonna wanna wash my hands a little bit before I touch my phone. No offense. I'm just cutting the mantle into some strips here. If you've ever eaten calamari, the mantle is likely the delicious chunks you've enjoyed. Has anybody made calamari before? I think that would be kind of fun to do. Now that we're good at dissecting them. All right, that should be good. All right, washing my hand off on this towel over here. And I'm gonna sneak you out of the tripod with one hand. All right, come on with me to the touch tanks. And we'll see if anybody's hungry here. I'm gonna flip the camera around. All right, so we have a nice lady kelp crab here. She sees me and see how her little feet are perking up. Just gonna reach in. Oh, see how excited she is. That's my finger. All right. That is, I think, the happiest crab I have ever seen. Kind of watches her little mouth parts. Oh, she's just going at it. She can use those pinchers to snip away at that nice squid meat and get it into smaller pieces for her little mouth. I see another hungry crab over here, so I'm gonna come over and give this cute little kelp crab here. It's doing a little back bend. It is so excited. Here you go. Yeah, that is, okay, maybe I gave that one a little bit too big of a piece of squid, but that, again, happiest crab. Let's watch that as I grab another piece. All right, who's jealous over here? We have, let's see if you can see our graceful crab. Oops. I think they would like a little chunk. Oh yeah. I think our animals love when it's squid day. So like graceful crabs, really similar to Dungeness. They never get as big though, and they're a little more purple. I notice she has that notch after her whitest point. I'm gonna shift over to our little sharp-nosed decorator crab here. See if they're interested in a piece of squid today. Maybe thinking about it. Oop, we'll just let that go. Oh yeah. Nice. Now it's also fun. Let's see. I have another big kelp crab somewhere in here. Oh, he's hiding way back here. We'll reach in. Let's see if he does his. Sometimes he like reaches his pinchers all the way out of the water to get his squid. Kind of back behind the filter. There you go, buddy. And then I think before I go, I'm gonna feed a couple of our hermit crabs. They're very cute when they're getting fed. Let's see, get a good eye on one. All right, so our hermit crab hanging out in this little shell. Sometimes we'll just see it reach out. Oh, they're kind of shy. All right, let's find a more reactive one, because it's so cute when they reach out and grab the squid. Maybe this one will play. There we go. That's a happy hermit crab. Awesome. I'll be feeding the rest of our hermit crabs here, and I'm noticing that, I'm gonna do a little bit of tank cleaning today, but it looks like our shiner perch here are, they're a little jealous. They would like to have some squid too. So I'm gonna chop up those chunks into smaller pieces for our other friends here and keep feeding our friends at the tank. But thank you so much for tuning in and learning more about the amazing squid we have here in the Puget Sound. as well as the larger Salish Sea. If you enjoyed today's lesson, one way you can support Harbor WildWatch is absolutely through a simple share. Send this along to a friend, like Harbor WildWatch, follow us, add us on Instagram. We're posting all sorts of content all the time and are so thankful to have you joining with us. So with that, learn, have fun, and see you next time.